Okay, so that was really strange. We were trying to do this on Zoom, and all of a sudden, volume went out. Couldn't hear you whatsoever. So then we decided to go to another venue, and as I was going to call you, nothing. And I looked at it and I went, wait a minute, his phone number's disappeared. It's a bunch of letters.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then on the Zoom call, my name was spelled Grreg.
Yeah.
I've never seen before, and I didn't type that in. So.
Yeah. So like in the bottom left-hand corner right now, I can see your name printed out, right? Greg Hallett. But on Zoom, it was changed. Grreg, was it?
It's Grreg. Yeah.
Greg. And you didn't do that. I didn't do that. I couldn't, right? It's your account. Yeah. So someone's messing around. Anyways, we are going to get this information out today. We ended up meeting up in England last weekend. And that was really interesting because we went for one small town, but you had to come out early because it was such a long trek for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was right across from the east coast to the west coast of England.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, we decided to meet in Peterborough. Well, originally it was going to be somewhere else. And then
I decided to take the Peterborough line to have a look at Peterborough Cathedral and to see if there's anything significant there. And there was. So
no kidding, there was.
That's what I was. Yeah. And so we videoed it, and the first video had sound, and the second, third, fourth, and fifth videos did not have sound.
Mm-hmm. So let me see if I can screen share here. We went to Peterborough, and you were already there. You were there much earlier than us, and you went in, and it was pretty empty, right?
Yeah, I was basically the first person in, first or second, so I could take photographs with no one there, which was great. And the morning light was coming in, so Peterborough Cathedral was working at its best. It's a tricky cathedral. It's actually 24 metres wider in the front than it is at the back. So it's all show, and then it's quite narrow. But it's an amazing piece of architecture done around 1200 AD, you know, how they did it.
It's incredible. We were in awe of the architecture, and especially you as an architect, you know, you or engineer. Were you an engineer or an architect?
Architect.
Yeah. It was truly an amazing piece of construction. So we walked in, and as we were looking at Mary, Queen of Scots, you went and stood beside her picture, and you said, do you remember? Her death.
Mary Queen of Scots' death was faked. And the official record is that she was buried there secretly at night, months after her official death. What actually happened was she supposedly was executed on 9th of February 1587, but she actually died around 1610. And then as soon as she died, they let her body rot for a bit, like 18 months or so it would be a bit normal. And then they reburied her 25 years later in Westminster Palace. Westminster Abbey.
Wow.
Right, because her whole death was faked. It was a Jesuit scam.
So it was interesting because she had two slabs. She had a slab of concrete or stone, I guess it would have been, that was right out in the walkway. People could just walk right over top of it. And then adjacent to it, like right butted up against it, was a bit of a lip, and that was the marble, her place of burial, I guess. And that was right against the wall.
Yeah.
And it was only, a couple of inches high. And so.
And that was done in 1843 from memory.
Right. Yeah.
Recently.
So I stood on the marble or the stone slab, which everyone was just walking right on, right? And as I stood on it, I went, oh, I don't like the energy of that. I stepped back off because my tummy was getting upset. And I stood on it again, and I thought, no, there's something really off here. And so you put your hands on her burial place, the marble one, And you said, well, maybe, just feel, you being a psychic, Carrie, just feel what you feel there. So I knelt on the stone thing, and I put my hands on Mary's, marble thing. And I hear this voice saying, "Get off me." I'm like, okay, did you hear that? and and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not getting off you. And I hear, and it's more a male voice, and it's like, "Get off me" again. And I won't do it what I heard because it was pretty scary. And I thought, no, I'm not getting off. And that's when I put my hands on her marble slab and I started to go underneath and lift up this negative captured energy. It was a ball of energy. And I captured it in this ball. And all of a sudden I saw her spirit slip up from behind and she smiled at me and was released. And then I put him in the brown ball. It's like a planet that I throw, it's like a negative entity jail, the claw, and I put it in the brown planet, and they stay there because that thing was really dark. And I there was nothing with the slab whatsoever. And I thought about it later when we were talking about it later, and I thought, that thing was living off all the energy. It was there deliberately. It was there to hold her captive for some reason. Don't know. But every person that was walking over top, it was actually taking a little bit of the energy from, because it wasn't stagnant, right? It was able to feed off of everyone's energy as they walked over that stone thing. What do you think about that? Am I really woo-woo?
Am I really woo-woo? Yeah, no, there's some sort of energy there, and you maybe released it. I think that's good.
Maybe released it. Oh,
you did release it, helping Catherine of Aragon, Queen of England, on her way.
Mm.
Now, so that was right at the apse of the church, and on the other side of the apse was where Mary Queen of Scots was buried. So we've just been talking about
right. That was Catherine of Aragon. That's right. I was getting the two mixed up.
And the other side, so on the left-hand side when you're going in, it's Catherine of Aragon, Queen of England, first wife of Henry VIII. And on the other side was Mary Queen of Scots. And she was there for 25 years, and she was buried at night in secret. It says that on the plaque. And the guides tell you that. And then she was removed 25 years later to be reburied at Westminster Abbey. So they're also put there for confusion between the two. They want to create as minimal clarity and as much confusion as possible about who the monarchs were. And some of them are not real, some of them are more real than others.
Right. And there was some spelling going on there, which was really interesting. And I don't mean as in writing letters. There was some other stuff that was going on right in front of us, which we'll get to. But we rounded the corner. We went past Catherine of Aragon, and we went around the corner and came back towards Mary, Queen of Scots. And as we were coming up, there was a podium. And by the way, they cleaned out all the pews. It was completely pewless.
Yeah.
There was not one chair in the cathedral. And so it was like a big dance hall, actually. It was amazing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
came up to this podium.
So yeah, we came up to the podium or cathedral. They were making a big thing about the podium. You've got the eagle and the Bible behind the eagle, big brass gold looking eagle, and the Bible's there. And the Bible's open, and there was these signs saying this is actually a cathedra, which is short for cathedral, and this is where the priest does a sermon from. So you're not supposed to stand there, apparently.
Well, we found that out later, and it's a couple of steps up. It's very much like a pulpit in a church.
Yeah. So I stood up there, and I read it. I read what was opened, and it's one verse, but it's about three different things, and none of it makes sense at all.
Yeah.
But then, for the first time, it did make sense because it had just happened with the three of us And so I thought I'd read it out if I can find it here.
Yeah, because we did record this, and the volume didn't record.
Yep.
And you can actually see in the video at one point you've got your mic on and the green light is on,
Yeah.
right? So it was being recorded, but there's no audio. So we thought we're not defeated. Greg is just going to read from the Bible passage that this huge Bible, it was massively, big old Bible, and it was open to a page. And security came up to Lynn's and said, they're not changing the pages, right? They were very adamant that the page stayed open to this page. And the verse said what?
It's Hosea 3, 1-5. And it's further assurances of God's redeeming love. So 3. The Lord said to me again, go love a woman who has a lover and is an adulteress, just as the Lord loves the people of Israel, though they turn to other gods and love raisin cakes. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and a homer of barley and a measure of wine. And I said to her, you must remain as mine for many days. You shall not play the whore. You shall not have intercourse with a man, nor I with you. For the Israelites shall remain many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or pillar, without ephod or teraphim. Afterwards, the Israelites shall return and seek the Lord their God and David their king. They shall come in awe to the Lord and to his goodness in the latter days.
Okay, can you sum that up a little bit for...
My complaints about the Bible is it's all over the place. And there's all these random things in there like raisin cakes, buying a woman for some wine and some bread and some
15 shillings, yeah.
Silver. And so without sacrifice or pillar, without ephod or teraphim. So just to make that clear, ephod is a type of apron. So without wearing the priest's apron, right? And teraphim is...
Or Mason's apron.
Teraphim is anything that's disgraceful. So without going full priestly and without doing anything disgraceful, right? So basically normal people, common folk. So what I did is I read this out aloud, and then they came and complained. I read it out aloud again and explained it a bit. Now, I'll just explain a few things. The word whore in the Bible means any woman with grey hair. So it generally means a woman 45 years or older, right? Over 45. So the Lord said to me again, go love a woman who has a lover and is an adulteress.
Okay.
Right?
Why?
Love a woman who is an adulteress. So there's a woman who's married who you can go and take as your lover. And just as the Lord loves the people of Israel, seems to be in a free fall state of collapse right now, and the next chapter, the next verse is called God Accuses Israel. So they really stuck it to this time. And Israel, though they turn to other gods and love raisin cakes. That's just hilarious. So I bought her, the whore, the woman with the grey hair, 45 and over, for 15 shekels of silver and a homer of barley, which is like a loaf of bread, and a measure of wine. And I said to her, you must remain with mine for many days. You shall not play the whore. You shall not have intercourse with a man, nor I with you. For the Israelites shall remain many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or pillar, without apron or disgraceful things, ephod or teraphim. Afterwards, the Israelites shall return and seek their Lord their God. Afterwards, the Israelites shall return and seek their Lord their God and David their king. They shall come to the Lord and awe to the Lord and to his goodness in the latter days. Right. So we're in the latter days now.
And David the king.
David the king has just been tested for a week, finishing Thursday, and then we were there Saturday, and he passed all the tests.
Mm-hmm.
He's been accepted, which is great. And
so Friday the 24th was the day in between.
Yeah. So I'm the seconder, so I'm the only one that knows about it. So they left this Bible passage there on that day, right? And then you said, take a photo of this thing, and it is the, what is it? It's the...
Masons?
No, it's the... Here it is. It's the date thing. On Saturday the 25th, what palms to read from, and Sunday the 26th is Christ the King, the Sunday next before Advent. So that's what it's open. So that's the next day. And they had all the pews taken out, and they had Chinese women there dancing qigong with music and fans, you know. And they were really, like you said, they were incanting. Now that's...
And they would stomp. They would do the fan and stomp, right?
It's interesting that all the pews were up. Then they're having a light show there, and they showed us a still of the light show, and it's like blue lights at night all through the cathedral, like astronomical, starry stuff. So that might be an excuse for the pews going up as well.
The Chinese were wearing white with blue, faded blue outfits and blue bottoms and white tops. Yeah. And it's interesting to me that that is also a dress code elsewhere, right? And the blue lights were also tying into what they were wearing, I thought.
Yeah. Definitely felt like there's more going on than what we were seeing there. It felt like a planned thing. Like it's like the church itself is trying to denigrate the church. But they wouldn't have done this at any time until that day. I don't think, you know. Like they started to serve coffee in the church and tea in the church. Like you'd eat in the church now.
Yeah.
You know? And you can wear any clothes you want, and then foreigners now allowed in to do their cultural things. Mm-hmm. You know, they had other foreign things that were advertising in the back of the church. So yeah, it's like there's just inviting.
So that goes to the advertisements right now. I was casting director for 19 years for commercials mainly, and you know, you get a breakdown and there would be minority representation, like, you know, Chinese, Black, ethnic groups. So politically incorrect now to even say that, right? But that was our breakdown. And now we were walking through the mall, and every single picture, there was not one Caucasian. And so we're noticing that in the advertisement. It is, they're wiping out the white race. It's like, you know, the pendulum has gone the totally different direction, and which is great because somewhere in it'll even out. But so we noticed that at the church as well. They had
I think with the advertising, which was, you know, prolific and absolutely non-white, is they're not expecting whites to have any disposable income. Mm. That's why they're advertising to anything that isn't white.
Really?
Yeah.
And how did they think that? They're taking down the
collapse of all businesses from 2020, right. Mid-level businesses.
Right.
Yeah. So
makes sense.
That was kind of interesting that they would open the Bible on those levels, you know.
So we also had Tweedledum and Tweedledee. Everything has a nursery rhyme around us, isn't it though? I mean, we have someone that we know very well that is bald and looks like Humpty Dumpty. And, you know, all the king's horses, all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again once he fell off that wall. And we know that that wall is about to crumble for him. And then we have the Pied Piper showed up at Ashtoy Palace with me, with the dead bird. And that was another prophecy that was amazing. And, oh gosh, how many others? you with the Cinderella, and
Yeah.
then we had Tweedledum and Tweedledee
Yeah, they look like
following us.
what's following me today, actually.
Yes. So we actually have a video here of them walking away, and they followed us pretty much all the way through. They stayed right beside us as we were filming and talking. And yeah, they could have just been interested in what we were doing, but it just seemed a bit more than that.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
I can watch. Now the other bits of the Bible were key things, right?
The four.
That it was opened at. So the last page it was opened at was Luke 18 to 19. And you know how Walter Raleigh laid his cloak down for Queen Elizabeth I?
Mm-hmm.
I never work out what it was, but I thought, oh, it's his. He's saying that they've got the same coat of arms,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because they're actually first cousins. They've got the same. Elizabeth's mother was Queen Anne Boleyn. That was Raleigh's grandmother.
And my coat will protect you.
So what I've actually found, it was open. The answer was open in that Bible in St. Petersburgh Cathedral in Luke 18 to 19, especially 19 at 36 to 38, and it's called Jesus' Triumphal Entry into Jerusalem. 35. Then they brought it to Jesus, and after throwing their cloaks on the colt, they set Jesus on it. 36. As he rode along, people kept spreading their cloaks on the road. As he was now approaching the path down from the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of disciples began to praise God joyfully with the loud voice of all the deeds of power they had seen, saying, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord." Now, so as he rode along, people kept spreading their cloaks on the road. So they did that in Luke 19:36 for Jesus, right? Now, Raleigh was of the house of Ephraim or Joseph, and so was Queen Anne Boleyn. And his brother-in-law, his supposedly brother, but actually his stepbrother, was discovering America. And while he was doing that, he had the title Christ. And he drowned at sea. And then the discovery of America went to the vice admiral of the expedition, who was staying at home, and that was Walter Raleigh. So Walter Raleigh inherited America and the style and title Christ, right? Christ is actually a title. And to show that through the Ladybird books, which I've got here somewhere, Raleigh laid his cloak down for Queen Elizabeth II to show everyone that he had the title Christ. And he was also Lord, and rather Lord of Lords, because he was the Marquis of Pembroke, which is the highest Lord title. It's Lord of Lords. And he laid the cloak down for Queen Elizabeth because he had the title Christ, and she gave him North America. So they opened that up for us, which is great.
It's fabulous. So that was one of the pages. There were three more, right?
There were four. No, you're right. Okay. So Isaiah 3:12. My children are their oppressors, and the women rule over them. O my people, your leaders mislead you and confuse the course of your paths. This is where it was open,
Which is 3:3, 3:12.
So, and then there was Mark 1:2. And Mark 1:2. As it is written in the prophet Isaiah, see, I am sending my messenger ahead of you who will prepare your way, the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make his path straight. John the Baptizer appeared in the wilderness. Now that's just spot on for me, because I should have been shouting. Like, I'm not really a Bible follower. I went to church like twice when I was a kid. It's just to see what it was like, really. So the
one that you just read, what does it mean, though, to you?
Tell you what it means. So Mark 1, 2, 3, and 4. As is written in the prophet Isaiah, which I'll read to you, See, I am sending my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way, the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make his path straight. John the Baptizer appeared. Now, John the Baptist appeared in about, 2019. Rang me up, said I'm coming over to London from LA. He's a sound engineer. So we met him in London. We had a big drinking session, hung out, and he's come over a couple of times now. So his name's actually John the Baptist. That's his actual name, right? So that's pretty coincidental. So I've been calling out that the prophecies in the Bible and in Shakespeare and in the Rosicrucian cosmography, which is there,
That one. That one.
Are happening. They're actually happening, and I've been pointing them out and making videos on them, etc., etc. So in Mark, it alludes to Isaiah. Mm-hmm. Now, in Isaiah, I was looking up. I was saying to David, what's the? He's saying. I said, what's the prophecy that's left to be done? And he's going, the valleys will rise up and the mountains will bow. And I'm going, okay. So what I did for the first time ever is I
went to the Bible.
I went to the Bible, and there's about, 24 different Bibles. There's 1,269 different versions of Christianity.
Wow.
Right?
And I had no idea.
It's nuts. It's 24 or 40 Bibles. So I created the 1,270th version of Christianity. There's two Jesus.
Of course you did.
And a lot of people said, absolutely right. And they pointed out bits in the Bible, and there's a lot of historical things that there's two Jesus. I spoke to some high ups, and they said there's two Jesuses and four other Jesuses. So there's six, but the two main ones. Right? Wow. But I don't actually prefer to. Like, Jesus was the fifth most common name, so maybe you had six people called Jesus, all about the same age, who were into the same things in the same town, Jerusalem. And once the so-called crucifixion happened, they all scarpered, right? Saved their life.
Out of town.
There's reports of them going to the Algarve in Portugal, to England, to Wales, to Scotland, to India, to France, and to Tibet. Right?
So that would make sense, because so many of the holy books on this planet all speak of a Jesus. Almost all of them.
Even the Bible speaks of a second Jesus. 2 Corinthians 11:4, it says, if someone talks about another Jesus that we haven't spoken about, bear with him.
Wow.
Right? So the Bible's actually saying, listen to someone who's talking about another Jesus. Right? So what's happened is, Jesus is a name, it's the fifth most common name, and it actually means he who saves. Right?
Yeah.
So he can save money or he can save others. But that's what the name Jesus means. And in England, it translates as John. Right?
So pretty common name.
Spain, Jesus translates as Jesus. And there's a lot of people called Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
But it's actually Christ as the title. Christ is a spiritual title. Right. So what Isaiah 4:40 says, every valley in the Common Bible, like King James Version, every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough places plain. Right? So, and that's the last prophecy to be fulfilled. Like, we've seen all the others, like the heavens and earth shall join. That was 5th of November around then, 2023. The Aurora Borealis coming as far south as Norfolk, Suffolk, and Sussex. And that's the absolute way of the heavens and the earth joining, right? So that's kind of interesting. So Every valley shall be exalted, every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough places plain. So you look up the words, and it's some Hebrew, and it's got a number next to it, 3956, and you look up that word every, and it means all, the whole, every kind of. Every part applies one piece at a time to the whole. And you look up ravine, and it's valley, chasm, cleft, split, rock in the ground. Shall be filled as make full, for full, complete. And is even also, namely, mountain is also hill. It's also mound and small hill. Shall be lowered is also humiliated and made humble. Right? So we're not actually talking about valleys and mountains. We're talking about humbling, right?
Bowing.
And shall be is interesting. It's I exist throughout time. I am to be straightforward. The is the different article. Crooked paths is unfair, tortuous, perverse. For is into, motion into which. Straight is acting immediately on God's path, avoiding delays or deviations, immediately upright on a straight way. So acting on it straight away.
Okay. So give us a
three more. Rough is rugged, uneven, and plains is low-lying, flat, easy for the feet, and smooth is level plain. So Isaiah 44 actually reads, every kind and every part shall be filled, one piece at a time, so they are all part of a whole. Every mound to a mountain shall be humiliated and made humble. You exist throughout time, and I and am are straightforward. The unfair, tortuous, and perverse shall motion to act immediately on God's path, avoiding delays or deviations, immediately upright as on a straight way. Rugged places will be made level and plain, easy for the feet. So it's the high ups, that's the way I read it, it's the high ups exposed for mass murder frauds, having to go down on bended knee to the people in the valleys, going, I'm so sorry we tried to kill you all. I'm humbled. Here is all of our assets. Can I go now, please? That's basically what's happening. So that's Isaiah 440. And then in the Bible bit that's open, it referenced Isaiah, in the Peterborough Cathedral. So what I think happened is that they opened it exactly so that only we would understand that passage for the first time. And it would allude to the last passage in the Bible. So people following us and preparing the way, I think, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And the fact that the security guard came up and she was so adamant that we weren't changing those passages where it was earmarked.
I think she was most concerned that we didn't remove the ribbons.
Yeah.
It was that easy to find. But I didn't remove the ribbons, but I did read from the first one when I was there, and then take photographs of the rest to see it. So it just seemed to be quite timely. So it's not about every mountain shall be exalted, every hill shall be made low. It's about every part shall be filled one piece at a time.
Okay, so then something that Lynn's actually spotted. He said, look at this, guys, over here. So you got down off the pew, or off the podium, I should say, and you came in the middle of, how do you describe that? That's where all the cardinals would have sat, or the bishops, or who?
Chancery.
Okay. And so do you want to describe what happened there? That was pretty neat. Do you remember? The Masons symbol, and then it's a canon.
There's 10, 11, and 12 was one with no name.
Right. And then canon 13 was right there.
Just had vine leaves there.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So you stood in between them.
Yeah. Yeah, tell me what happened.
Okay. So we're looking at it, and the sun is going down, and so the sun is beaming in on this beautiful woodwork, and it came on like a spotlight onto the Masons symbol, and they had the Masons symbol against the wall in this beautiful engraved woodwork, right? And there was the Masons symbol, and right underneath it said canon 11, and I thought, wow, that's different. But Canon 12 had no symbol, and it just had a piece of material. It didn't even say Canon 12, which was kind of interesting. And then you look over to the next one, where the next seat would be, and it had Canon 13. So obviously this is Canon 12, but it is nameless. And so you stood in between and kind of adjusted your jacket and said,
I said, so I'm the nameless one then.
yes, yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
you said, I'm the nameless one. Well, you're the Canon 12.
Suits me. Suits me. What this, the architecture was absolutely spectacular. So I've sent you a lot of photos. So hopefully you can put them in.
There's a few more things in the video, actually. I made some notes. Okay, so the brass symbol itself, it had a huge, massive eagle in front of it. And at the feet were 4 lions, as the claws were lions' heads. Any symbolism there for you? 4 lions? 4 corners? Don't know. Okay, so
then... Yeah, Lion of Judah.
Right, but in the chest of the bird had a T.
Yeah, which is, it could actually be part of the manufacturing process, or it could be a tail cross. It was in the shape of a tail cross, which is that. And the tail cross is really important. I used the tail cross to find Jacob's pillow.
And what is a tower cross?
It's that shape.
Okay, so it's an instrument that you use for...
It's a T shape. It's a T shape.
Yeah, like, I know. But is it an instrument, or what is it? Like,
it can be whatever you want it to be. Like the tail cross that I used was a mile across and 1.5 miles deep.
Ah, I see. Ah, okay. So we saw that. And then the podium itself had 4 beautifully carved symbols on each corner. And you actually had your hands on 2 of them. One was the bull, and the other one was the lion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a bull, a lion, an angel, and an eagle.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that everyone uses the eagle. You know, actually the United States of America uses it, which is actually Jesuit. It's a Jesuit takeover of North America. The Nazis used it for their Third Reich, and the United States of America was the Fourth Reich. And so Reich actually means rich. So the First Reich was probably the Roman Catholic Church. They all used the eagle.
There you go. And then we ended up leaving there after watching the Chinese demonstration. That was really interesting because as soon as it finished, there were several people walking around there and watching. But the Asian lady that was the coordinator, she came straight to me. And she said, this is Qigong. And we are the Chinese Association in Peterborough, and we are teaching Tai Chi to anyone that would like to learn. So we were just doing a ceremony here today. And I thought, ceremony, that was infusing some kind of energy. There was something going on there. It was very...
Incantation.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, it was something. And I wish we had the volume on that, but I understand why now. As I was editing and putting all the videos together, I went, that's why we don't have the volume, because had we played that volume, it would have enchanted other people that would be listening.
Yeah, well, okay, so that's Qigong, right? Now, just imagine that there was a church or something similar, an Eastern version of a church, like, let's say a Buddhist temple in China, if there was one. And let's say we went into that Buddhist temple and started kicking a soccer ball around and cheering our own goals inside a Buddhist temple. that would be the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I'd use a different analogy. What if we came in and started putting the incense in and started chanting and doing the like Ukrainian Catholic where the priest speaks and then the congregation follows and the priest speaks and the congregation follows. Buddhist temple wouldn't be too keen on that, right? It would be kind of polluting all of the energy that they have worked so hard to build, the peacefulness within that.
I think it's called miasma. It's why people who have temples don't lend their temples out to other groups, is because they infuse it with a different energy, right? So they're actually infusing the Qigong energy into what is supposedly a Church of England cathedral. And it just spells the end, really. Well, I'm not fussed about it at all. I'm not fussed about that. But,
I thought it was actually pretty, well, it's a huge symbol that the church is going down, to me. That it's a different phase for the Catholic Church, I think.
Well, they're so desperate for punters that open their doors to anyone.
Yeah.
Right? But then they open the Bible, and then the last person that they expect to walk in, who's ever been to church and deciphers the Bible on the spot and goes, "Hey, that just happened,"
It's true.
And
yeah.
Then,
and then it doesn't end there, because we leave there, we start walking through the mall to get to the car, and as we're walking through the mall, you go, "Look at that!" And there's this big sign. It's like 6 feet, 7 feet tall, and it has a giant Q. Right?
Well, was that in the shopping mall?
It was, yeah.
Okay. Well, then we went to Tetbury, which is 3 hours drive away in the Cotswolds, right? And we went to the Snooty Fox and had lunch.
That's right.
Skiving off, and then right across from the Snooty Fox was another big queue in the shop window about this big.
Yeah. Yeah. So we saw 2 or 3 queues that day. Yeah. But this one was, what did it say? Something like, welcome or thank you for visiting.
There might be a photo of me sitting there behind the queue, standing in the queue, and that does not mean that I am Q. So don't people say, "Are you Q?" Don't say that. I just went to a shopping mall in Peterborough.
And saw a queue, a giant queue.
Just I'd like to clarify that I've never been QAnon. I've never been into QAnon. I've had no emails with QAnon. Never read QAnon. I'm just absolutely nothing to do with QAnon. I think QAnon is a CIA counterintelligence psyops, right?
Really?
Yes.
They were putting out some pretty interesting tweets.
Stop. Shush. Quiet.
Okay.
Quiet. There's QAnon and there's Q. Q's the original. It's got the big dial stuff and it's got all prophecies. And QAnon comes along and it's this like, and he's misinterpreting everything and pretending to be associated with Q. And it's a QAnon is a counterintelligence operation against Q.
I didn't know.
Anyone who follows Q gets accused of being QAnon, which is a CIA counterintelligence operation.
So they stole.
Got to be specific. Yeah. Right? It's like, people talk about Antichrist, and is that spelled A-N-T-I Christ or A-N-T-E Christ? Yeah. And A-N-T-I is the opposite of Christ, and A-N-T-E is in place of Christ. And people waffle on, not defining which they're talking about, and they've been doing that for, centuries. So we got to get right.
Okay, and then there is one last thing. On our Patreon account, we had a couple of questions. So one question I have is, how do these bad actors fit in? Because they seem to be giving a lot of truth. I first came across Greg through Charlie Ward, for instance, and he also spoke fairly similarly to everyone. Found that he got real boring after 2020. He's talking about CW, not you. And so stopped listening to Charlie. So I guess they control the narrative in some way, he's asking. And like dissing Greg, for instance, how else do you think that they control the narrative?
Most of the people on the internet is basically a counterintelligence operation, and 99% of the people on the internet are counterintelligence agents leading people astray. And the CIA narrative is to control the narrative. That's all they want to do, is control the narrative. So they'll get an idea that's good and they'll run with it, and then they'll bring other people on to negate it, and they'll run the idea downhill while still getting massive viewership because they're so controversial. And then they'll steal the people's identity, the person who's told the truth, and use that to fund themselves and defund the person who did all the research.
Well, that's exactly what we just talked about with Q.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, Dave Mahoney in the British papers, who wrote that I was QAnon.
Wow.
And I'm not. And he also published me in his book as being a contributor, and I'm not. And he had a photo of me in his book, and I didn't give permission for that. And I don't support him, and I never have. I've always thought he was a sociopath.
You're talking Charlie Ward right now. And it freezes right at that moment. You froze.
And then I read okay. So I made all these accusations against Charlie Ward, and then you're going, oh, pass this by my lawyer. Well, you can't say that. You can't say that. And then you sent me a copy of his book, and I read it, and he admits to it all.
I know.
He admits to being a sociopath, psychopath, sexual psychopath, coke user, alcoholic, thief, identity thief, money launderer, and producing counterfeit money.
Well, what I was really blown away with, because I hadn't looked at Charlie's book for a very, very long time, and he had sent me a copy of it when I was publishing it. Anyways, he actually had a photo of you in it, and he gave you 100% credit for all of his success. He said that he had, 150 viewers after 10 years of doing podcasts or a YouTube channel, 10 years. And he had 150 viewers. And the moment that he started bringing you on as a guest and talking about all of your successes and basically riding your tails, that's where the success came in. And he built himself upon you. And yet he took 25,000 names from your list, and the rest is history. So I think that he's made millions. His banking is offshore, like in a place that is very unusual, and yeah, he's done some stuff here, right?
Basically, I did 20 years research, and I made 1,500 quid, and he made 150 million.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And he got people on board, all operating under false names to trash me, and they got everything wrong. They even showed photos of not me. It said it was me with my name underneath them. And they got everything wrong. And whenever I was a hero in a story, they put me down as the bad guy. Like the Centrepoint thing, when I was 19 and 20, and I'm the one who exposed it as a government operation. Mm-hmm. And Charlie Ward actually got the guy who created it, bad guy, and this guy who was an MP, Roger Douglas, he was behind Centrepoint, and he was accusing me of creating Centrepoint on the Charlie Ward show. But Centrepoint was created in north of Auckland in 1978, when I was 5 hours south, without a car, without a phone, at school. I was 16 and 17 in school, and they're accusing me of creating a
mastermind.
And it was like a Tavistock for hippies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was a government operation. So the people who were behind it were the MP for broadcasting and the MP for finance and the president for Law Society, and all of them were heroin traffickers at the time. You know, and then I'm the one who exposed
proof of that
as well. So they were trying to target me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just there's no credit in New Zealand for doing anything right. It's just a land of thieves.
Mm. Well, it has a history of that supposedly, but we don't know what the history is anymore, really. You know?
Well, I could talk about the history of New Zealand, and it's not pretty.
Yeah.
At all. It's basically a genocidal mass murder, killed 1 million people in 1725, and then the whites came in 1800.
Wow.
So the existing natives there were mass murdered by the incoming brownskins who assumed the identity of the original people and called themselves Maori, and they weren't.
So I want to go back. Sorry?
Maori means white native.
White native.
Yeah,
Really?
and they came in with brown, dark brown.
Wow.
There's a tell there.
No kidding.
Yeah. So so they didn't want the story coming out because I've been researching history now for about 20 years, and they didn't want my stories coming out, so they couldn't slander my stories, so they slandered the messenger. So they just went full on and attacked me as much as they could.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened is my fame went, you usually get a bell curve, it's like that, gentle, right? Mine went like this, whoop, poof.
It fell right off.
Oh,
well, they really did a good number trying to discredit you. Meanwhile, they were pocketing from the profits immensely.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people were giving 9 or 11 pounds a month to Charlie? It was, I don't know, 100,000 maybe?
I think it's about 130,000 and 11 pounds a month for, I don't know.
2 years, at least, maybe 3. Mm-hmm.
Off by that, you start to get to 150 million.
Yeah. Okay, so I look at you and I think, I don't know many bad guys that are vegans. You have to be principled to be a vegan.
Yeah.
Do you know? I would think.
Yeah, I just don't like meat and eggs and cheese anymore. So, but yeah, there's a bit of that. It's a bit of that. You don't get many psychopathic vegans, do you?
No.
They go, hang on a minute, Hitler was a vegetarian. We don't know for sure, and we're not sure which side Hitler was on.
Yeah. Oh, don't even open that can of worms, Greg Hallett. Oh, you're going to get hate mail, and you're going to get it from me.
From the naive people. Yeah. Anyway.
You don't need to, just like earlier, what you said to me, shush, shush, shush. That's what I'm doing here. Yeah, exactly. The Ravens. Yeah, we got that at the tower. That was awesome.
Yeah. It was quite amazing actually that they're so big. They've got shoulders, and they're, if you're worried about a corvid and you're going, is that a raven or is it a one of the other birds? The ravens have like a 5-foot wingspan, right? And all the other ones have a wingspan about that much.
Yeah.
So, and they have ruffled feathers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
And they actually have shoulders, and they're quite big. They're quite amazing, those birds. So hopefully in the next one we'll have some video footage of the Tower of London ravens, because they were.
Yeah. Well, they were doing their mating dance as well when we were there, and I don't think people get to see that very often, right? But they were right in front of us doing their.
He's definitely He's a bit of an Elvis himself.
Yeah, I just exit stage left. You go do your thing. See ya. Yeah. Okay. We'll chat soon. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Carrie. Bye.
Okay.